Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Let's welcome our main speaker for this evening, and it is Bruce. Yay. Bruce.
Hi, my name's Bruce. I'm an alcoholic. Hey, I love groups that clap for you before you even open your mouth. And I want to thank Justin. Where'd he go? He's hiding. He's disclaiming having asked me to speak. But I want to thank him for asking me to speak. I also want to thank John for short notice. 1 hour before the meeting, he says, I'll be there 15 minutes early. Guess what happened? And that's the type of spirit that exists in here among the people who have this desire to keep it and to embrace it as a way of life. I guess one of the most endearing things that ever happened to me in AA happened when I was a newcomer, and I didn't even know that it happened. It says the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. Anything more than that, and you know, they got an old saying back home. I got sober in Massachusetts. That's where I'm from originally. It's not their fault. They can't help themselves. They seem to have been born that way. But I love it back there. There's a big chunk of my heart that's still there. But they had a saying back there, it's a good thing we can't get arrested for our thoughts. So when I got here, I think I'd have got, 99 years plus a day. That means you don't ever get out. That's the whole 99 plus 1 day. That's another part of my story from, well, whatever. And we think we have it bad sometimes, and we did. We wouldn't be here because we're not here because it was fun. But I mean, I got sent out to a big penitentiary in Kansas, and they had guys on that bus that were doing over 2,000 years. Go figure. And they didn't get up some morning and decide to get that. And they didn't get it all at one act. It was a progressive thing, and who knows? I mean, I believe that there's some of us that, for lack of a better expression, are born in captivity. I'm Irish and Indian. Do the math. I mean, it's just fire, water, and a trip to the pub. And, I want to thank John for a great share tonight, too. That was one of the reasons I call him. He's alive with this. It's vibrant. And he also wasn't somebody that got it on the fast track. It took a while. Dr. Bob relapsed. Bill Wilson had been hospitalized numerous times before he finally got it. And his sobriety date wasn't June 10th, 1935. That was Dr. Bob's. Bill Wilson got sober December 10th, 1934, and it took him that long to find someone that would get it, or who did get it, and kept it. And even then, he had to bounce a little bit, Dr. Bob. They kind of poured him off a train one day, and the rest he drove around for 3 days and finally found it. So what does all this mean? It means that when they originally wrote the third tradition, and they left it the way it was originally written in the Big Book. I'm a student of the Big Book. We're going to probably hear a little bit about that tonight, along with the 12 and 12 and steps and sponsorship and a higher power and, but it used to say the only requirement for membership was an honest desire to stop drinking. And then they looked at each other and shook their heads and said, what new alcoholic coming in has even a passing acquaintanceship with honesty? So, and that was me too. I didn't know what honesty was. Honesty, you give your scouts honor. Okay, all right. And with your hands are behind you and your fingers are crossed, and you know. But I'm the product of a loving family who cared about me, who loved me. My parents were two of the lambs in the world. I was a great little kid. I know because my son grew up in my image, and he was wonderful. Daddy, what are we going to do today? And where are we going to go? We're going to go in your car? He liked my car. I had a 911 Porsche, and it was new, and it came from bad money, which means I didn't keep that Porsche. And, you know, they took everything that I had. And then there's another saying back east, what we didn't lose, we gave away. I just unmanaged it right out of my life. So, but that's alcoholism. I also consumed substantial quantities of other substances. And one of the things I've had to learn while I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous is to forgive myself for the things I didn't know. And in any event, I want to go back because it is a disease of underlying causes. I didn't drink just because I drank, and I drank so I drank. It got to be that way, but you know, early on, when I first discovered alcohol, I had moved all over the East Coast with my family and never had any stability or stayed anywhere. And I don't blame anybody. John said it, I say it too. Got to get out of that blame game, because I'm giving someone else a whole lot of authority over my mental and emotional state when I'm blaming them for my unhappiness. I'm the fish I got to catch. My unhappiness is what I have to do. And just like John said, you know, you get people that say, well, you know, those are valid feelings. They may be valid feelings, but my obligation to myself is to do something about those uncomfortable feelings that I don't like and that I used to have to anesthetize, and that I, you know, and some of them, you know, who wants to feel ashamed? Who wants to feel guilty? Who wants to feel self-loathing or self-pitying or have low self-esteem or feel inadequate or insecure or impending doom or fear or resentment? Let me know when I hit one that doesn't fit, you know? So, and that's the thing, you know, there is a common thread that runs through all. You look around this room tonight, you got so many races, so many ethnic backgrounds, so many people and all different types of orientation and all the other stuff, and it said we're people that more normally would not mix. Well, we might not have mixed out there, but in here the common thread is the suffering that we endured and the common solution that they found way back when. And you go back, this year we celebrated 70 years of Alcoholics Anonymous' existence. Go back 72 years, and what we have is a death sentence back then. No solution, no way out. You know, they found the Oxford group and went there hoping that that would solve their alcoholism. And the reason that it led to them forming Alcoholics Anonymous is because they had a spiritual program that they embraced, but they were not allowed to talk about their alcoholism in the Oxford group, and they said, we got to talk about that. So let's go, because a lot of the early founders of AA were part of that Oxford group. So, and that was just them searching. Religion is one of the things I did as part of my search to feel well. And it didn't work. Matter of fact, I had a very Catholic upbringing. Heard all about God. Unfortunately, either the impression that was given to me or how it was presented left me feeling there is no way in the world I can ever measure up to his expectations. I am doomed. I find alcohol, start drinking now. You know, they talk about signposts. Try this one on for size and tell me if you would have clicked with you. My first drink, my first drunk, my first felony, and my first felony arrest all took place inside of 12 hours. As a child committing a felony. So that's hitting the ground running. So you'd think, geez, if I didn't have picked up the drink, I wouldn't have got drunk, and I wouldn't have gone out and did what I did with those guys, and one of them wouldn't have snitched out the rest of us. So what's my answer to that? From now on, anything I do, I'm going to do alone, and then there's nobody to snitch me out. And it's funny, at the end of my drinking, because I was a world-class isolator, world-class industrial strength isolator, the end of my drinking career and drugging career took place home alone. Because the only way that I could feel safe in my world was to be the only one in it. I could control that. There were no social skills that were required. There were no coping skills. I could walk around the house half naked and messed up hair and unshaven. And there was nobody there to discipline me or to hold me to a higher standard, which at this point I couldn't do, even though I had held a job. When I went into treatment, I still had a job. I was employable because what I'd been doing a long time. And that much I could handle. Besides, if I'm not making money, how can I sustain these other things that I'm doing? And the end came when I'm a professional writer. The end came when I sat down one night, and for 3 hours I tried to write a synopsis on a novel. 3 hours later, I couldn't get 2 paragraphs that made sense or that seemed the way, which, yeah, you'd say, okay, well, all right, no, I wrote the novel. And I couldn't put a synopsis together. I got sober, then everything went okay, and it ended up getting published, and the rest is history. But the point I'm trying to say is that alcohol is what I had. Alcoholism is what's left after the alcohol is put down. And it was put to me once, you know, if alcohol is your problem, then just put the plug in the jug, get on with your life, and don't even bother coming around here. You don't need us. But if you put the plug in the jug and it either won't stay there, or you start getting these interesting and unusual feelings, or your mind starts wandering into strange places or down dark corridors, maybe you need something that we've got here because you're our kind of person. So alcohol for me was, it was an elixir. The first night I got loaded, there was just something magical, mystical. I wanted to, there's nothing like having an on-demand 24-hour call magic carpet. You take something 20 minutes later, the magic carpet shows up, you step on it, God knows where you're going, but it ain't going to be where you picked up the drink, because it's, you know. And that's what I wanted. It was never okay to be where I was. Tomorrow looked a little shaky. The past, I wanted to kind of not look at it. And the most heartbreaking thing of all was being cut off from a God that I used to think I was okay with. And when I got here to Alcoholics Anonymous, there's a line in step 2 in the 12 and 12, and it says, then there's the guy reeking of alcohol who believes he is religiously devout, who practices his faith scrupulously, and still believes in God, but suspects that God no longer believes in him. Now you're playing my song. And because I felt I had fallen too far down the scale. My wife had left me. Society had locked me in one of their penitentiaries. I was, you know, I was a bad boy. And I'm happy to say I got out a long time ago and haven't gone back, and I left that life behind me. I don't glorify it, but I mention it because that's a long way from being the altar boy that I was as a little guy. And I'm going to point something out that people say, well, how much time did you do? And any time, I mean, I'm sure we got at least one not quite model citizen in here that's probably done some time. Anytime someone asks you, how much time did you do, you can pop off. Number of years, months, and days from such and such to such and such. And I used to be able to do that. But what happened is one day, after thinking about it, I had been having a conversation with somebody, and the guy says, how much time did you do? And I said, this much. little over 1.5 feet, my hands were apart. And he says, "What the hell is that?" I said, "That's how much time I did." And he says, "I don't get it." And this is the way we hurt people. It's the way we hurt ourselves. When I got out of prison, I went over to see my now ex-wife. Our son's living with her. She tells him, "Your father's here." I'm at the front door. I can hear these footsteps come running down the hallway, down the stairs, down the next hallway, and around the corner. He says, "My daddy, and he comes running around the corner, and I says, "Hey, how are you doing?" And where I was looking at was his stomach. That's where his head had been when I got sent away. It was this much higher now. That's how much time I did. And my parents were X amount of years, my brother and sister, friends. So that's how much time, and these people loved me and they missed me. And in the process of me being away, you know, I began to have even worse doubts, and at the same time, when you're doing time, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're in a cell, and you're staring at a dark ceiling, and you're asking yourself, "What the hell am I doing here? This wasn't part of the game plan." And you trace yourself all the way back to the first drink, the first drunk, the first felony, and the first felony arrest. That was my scenario. So when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, the big question was, am I an alcoholic? I knew it was. And I had tried everything else to get out from under that condition, which I now know is permanent, it's lifelong, it's incurable. It's going to spend the rest of my life trying to convince me I don't have it, and it's going to be patting me on the back, telling me how good it is, how good I'm doing while it's trying to kill me. So the question isn't, do I have it? The question now becomes, what am I going to do about it? And this is the only really self-diagnosed illness of any kind that they really know. If you want to see if you got cancer, you go in and you get tests. If you want to see if you have diabetes, they have tests. If you want to see if you got this or that, they got tests. They've got, you know, RMIs, they've got blood tests, they've got all this stuff. And basically, they'll tell you whether you got it or not. But here, I have to admit that I'm powerless over alcohol and that my life is unmanageable. And until I do that, it's still up in the air. That's why they talk about the necessity of hitting bottom. You go to the last page of step 1 of the 12 and 12, and it says, why all this insistence that every alcoholic must hit bottom? Who cares to be rigorously honest? Who cares to help his fellow alcoholic? Who cares to make amends? Who cares anything about getting a higher power? Who cares anything about carrying the message? And on and on. He says, no, only the alcoholic, self-centered in the extreme, when facing death, will become that willing. And it wasn't my fault that I got here. It was the responsibility of a loving God that led me here. It says so right in tradition 2. We only have one ultimate authority, a loving God. And in my case, he had to also be some other things. Kind, caring, compassionate, understanding. And in my case, he had to be forgiving. Compassionate has an interesting definition if you look it up. Common shared suffering, which is what the compassion of one alcoholic has for another. We carry the message. A bunch of strangers, but you know what? If I can spend a couple of minutes talking something over with you that may help unravel a knot in your chest, some angst or some tough day or some shot you just took from somebody, whatever it is, I'll try and do it. I never intended to even open a big book. I never heard about a big book. When I did, tried to be kind of cool, and I'm looking around, and I don't see any really big books. I see a few books that are about average size, but none of them look too big. And not too many people know why they call it the big book. Bill Wilson was a salesman. He was a hustler, which is okay. You got probably one or two in a room here. And this is kind of interesting. I'm a historian for AA, for myself. But basically what happened was that the week that the big book was going to go to press, he made one last little, all right, well, let me do this. He wrote something real quick, and he said, this will make it 10% bigger, which means we can get more money from the drunks because we want to sell it for $3.50. Those books presently now are worth about 25 grand a copy. So that's inflation. And but what he did, he added a chapter, the last chapter, chapter 11, on the first 164 pages, A Vision for You, which starts at page 151. And basically, it made the big book 10% bigger. This is now it's a big book. That's where it came from. Interesting stuff. I'm a reservoir of useless information. But I never planned on looking at that book, but it took on such meaning to me. I have a guy from back east. Bill Wilson was my great-grand sponsor. The guy that sponsored me for 9 years of my sobriety before he passed was sponsored by a guy that was sponsored by Bill Wilson. That's one of the nice things about East Coast is every now and then you plug into someone like that, and it's great. I had one of my hobbies, not even a hobby, I took it seriously. I used to tape old-timers for the AA archives back east. You talk to some people that, geez, you hear stuff that, whatever, just you don't hear anymore. But for me, it was of being of service, of gratitude, of giving back, of doing something for somebody with no strings, And it feels good to be good, and it feels nice to be nice. And I came from something that wasn't any of that. And I didn't think that there was much hope for me because the grandiosity of this alcoholic, well, great minds think alike. So my great mind and God's great mind are on the same wavelength, and if I look at myself like a piece of crap, surely he must. Wasn't true. I was putting it on a moral level. He looked at it from a health standpoint, mental health. And it says, in our literature, the fact was we were mentally ill, and we were in full flight from reality. I didn't think so because I came from circles, well, men stand up and men this and men that, and I had the wrong impression of what a man was. Tough guys stay here. Anyone can go out there and bang and slam. But, and that's not something that I ever really warmed to, even though from a professional standpoint I did it for a number of years, but it was controlled. Martial arts. But in any event, what I wanted to do was come here and just put the plug in the jug. And that's a good enough place to start. But then I was told there's more I had to do. Step 1 does one thing, it acknowledges the problem. Steps 2 through 12 are all about the solution. Step 1 mentions alcohol once. There's 7, either the mention of God, higher power, or reference, 7 times in the remaining steps. So 7 to 1, it tells me what the importance is. And if I'm willing to put forth an honest effort to have someone show me this, it's so much easier when somebody's showing it to me than when I'm sitting there trying to figure it out. Page 29 in our big book says, what follows is a clear-cut set of directions showing how we have recovered. not cured. They've recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. I never planned on opening the book. I never planned on reading it. I never planned on studying it. Because of my 10th and 11th years in sobriety being the 2 hardest years of my life, drunk or sober, the circumstances that were produced, and I mean, I can't help it when other people are dying all around me and they're close to me, and I'm losing my best friend, and I lose my soulmate, I lose a family member, I lose close friends, and this and whatever. Plus, I've stepped into a job that's the right job, wrong guy that I'm working for, but, you know, it kept me busy, and that was good. I needed to stay busy. And I needed to talk to the guys I sponsored. I needed to talk to my sponsor. And plus, there's running conversations, you know. I was a professional chauffeur with a couple of other little odds and ends that were included in the job, where I would occasionally safeguard people's health and welfare, safety. So I'd spend 8, 9, 10 hours a day alone in a car. And going through the middle of all that, while, you know, whoever I'm with, a lot of VIPs are inside doing things, celebrities, musicians, athletes, business people, whatever. And I discovered tapes, recovery tapes. We're recording tonight, I guess. So in any event, that drove me to seek another level of sobriety that at that point I had not engaged in. I had already been involved in the big book and the 12 and 12. But what happened now, because I got so busy with the guys I was sponsoring, because that's where my relief was coming from. They never had to worry about, geez, am I talking to my sponsor? No, your sponsor's calling you every day because your sponsor is just going through purgatory without the flames. And I ended up with a photographic memory for the big book and the 12 and 12, and I never planned on it. I mean, chapter, verse, date, time, whatever, you know, you want the page number, I can give it. You want the paragraph, I can tell it. I can usually recite. And I didn't plan on any of that. That came from my higher power. But it's a joy to pass this stuff along to other people. It feels good. When I was a little kid, I spent a lot of time alone because of all that moving around. I never knew the names of the streets. I never knew the names of the kids. I didn't know where people hung out. There was 2 different grades. Then I went to 3 schools in the same grade. That happened twice because of them moving around, and that's the way it was. 3 sets of teachers, 3 sets of kids, 3 curriculums, all this different stuff. And basically what happened was I used to fantasize a lot, and I used to have this thing where, geez, I'd love to have this magical, mystical power where if I see a little puppy in the street that's been hit by a car and he's still alive, but he's hurt, and I could just put my hands over him and say something, and the dog would be healed, and he'd jump up and run around, lick my hand, and run away. That was fantasizing about that made me feel good. Fast forward to sobriety, and it says in A Vision for You, obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. Well, I've worked hard to get what I've got because I needed it. But now what I have is I can transmit it to other people, which I love. And that gives me that same thing, except it's not little animals, it's alcoholics. Sometimes it's just people I meet someplace. I have the good fortune of sponsoring a number of guys, and enough to keep me busy, to keep me occupied. At the same time, you know, I work at home, so I need my time at home, but I get a lot of calls there, 45, 50 calls a week that are AA. Doesn't include the business stuff. So, and the business stuff I'll sometimes, not often. I'm just of the school. You pick the phone up when it rings. If I'm right dead in the middle of something where I'm, you know, you're right about make-believe people in a make-believe world doing make-believe things and saying make-believe stuff, and you got to make it sound real, you tend to get buried in there, and it's tough to just in and out at will. But what it does is that it's an isolated, lonely thing, or it can be. Home alone, writing, etc., etc. So I need these outside stimuli that come through the phone, emails. I do 10 or 11 meetings a week. I love it. I've done, I don't know, somewhere between 9,500 and 10,000 meetings since I got sober. I don't have a life. But the thing is that I love this. But this, you know, I'm not a fanatic for it. When I leave here tonight, I'm not going to go and make 20 phone calls to other people and, hey, what kind of day you having? Some of them will tell me, and it's a bad day, and it might take a long time to tell you. And I have to kind of curtail some of that because, you know, a tough day turns into a major motion picture of epic proportions with a cast of one, you know. But that's okay. You know, I love being of service. I want to tell you about, I told you about the harm that can happen with how long I was away, how much my son grew while I was away. And I wasn't in a local jail. They sent me like 1,700 miles from home. They wanted to make sure that I was cut off. I got custody of my son for 7.5 years, and he was young. And it's not because he had a bad mom. I don't blame her. It was a better situation. He had more freedom in my home. He's a musician now. And he had time to just kind of settle down and collect himself, catch his breath. But I was always active in the program. I'd get calls from guys I sponsored, and we were talking about this before, you know. And his voice on the phone would sound just like mine. And people couldn't tell us apart. And I'll tell you what, when his girlfriend would call once in a while and I'd say hello, she'd say, how are you? It's kind of, I said, damn, you must want to speak to Mark. Oh, I'm sorry. And but before I put him on the line, how about if you tell me the rest of what you were going to say? Because that was getting kind of steamy, and well, that does nice things for me. So, and basically, I'd be out at times, and guys I sponsor, who, you know, I'd get phone calls from people in AA, and he'd suddenly drop out of sight. And I realize now, and he admitted it, I'm not admitted it, but he alluded to it, that he was listening to the conversations because he was getting the answers to questions that he had. And see, I didn't want to turn our home into a lecture room or a meeting or any of that stuff. But what would happen is he got pretty savvy at some of this stuff. And, you know, guys would call up with their ass on fire, and he'd say, I'd be out, and he'd say, hello? Oh, man, I'm glad you're home. You know, start freaking out and spilling it and pouring it, and he'd say, really, I think I want to speak to my dad. Oh, well, is he home? Actually, no. Well, then you'll do. And they. Now, what's this doing? His mom and dad are supposed to love him. That's kind of the unspoken thing. But other people that aren't his family are giving him a sense of purpose. And he's somebody who means something to somebody, and he's giving grown-ups help from things he's heard me say to other guys. And what I would do sometimes, they'd ask the question on the phone, and I'd say, oh, what do you do when you're, whatever the problem was. Then when I'd try and offer a solution that comes out of our program, he'd know what it was. He'd know what I was talking about. And why did I do this? Because I love my child. And there's times when he's the reason that I'm still alive. I think probably, I mean, anybody says anything, you know, they say, well, you got to get sober for yourself. Well, that's great. But I'll tell you what, anything that gives you a desire to be sober and to come here is good enough for me. And eventually in time we learn how to love ourselves, and we learn that it's for ourselves, and that the people around us become the automatic beneficiaries of our sobriety. But whatever gets you here, and it says in our 12 and 12, it's by circumstance rather than any virtue on our part that we are driven away, and then learn the fatal nature of our malady. My son became a part of a group of friends that he established in Massachusetts in our town. He still lives there. Although now he's doing a little pre-negotiation for a possible record deal, and I'd love to see that happen. Just for his dream to come true. Took me a while for mine to happen. Well, I'd love it for him too, because he's worked long and hard at what he does. But he was pieced together by people that hardly knew him. This is the ripple effect that goes out. They talk about all the harm that we do as alcoholics, the people we hurt. My sponsor used to say, my name's Bob and I'm an alcoholic, and that means that I will hurt you, I will disappoint you. And, you know, there's some of that goes on, obviously. But the ripple effect of healing, I believe, is greater than the harmful effect of alcoholism. The alcoholism is based on self-centeredness, self-will run riot. The healing process comes from a power greater than me. That's a power that is also greater than that harmful ripple effect that goes out from alcoholism. Thank God for the amends process where I can make my peace with my past, and in doing so find peace in my present. I drank over the things in my 4-step inventory and my 8th-step amends list. Fear, doubt, insecurity, guilt, remorse, regret, resentment, anger, secrets, and the people that I had hurt and how I hurt them, especially the ones I didn't mean to and who I loved. But I had to do it. John had mentioned it. Like a runaway train. It says so. We're like tornadoes roaring through the lives of others. And then we just think, well, I'm not drinking anymore. The hurricane's over, Ma. Ain't it great the wind stopped blowing? Well, there's wreckage. And the sobriety process of the steps allows me to address that. One of the greatest gifts that I think any person can do is to help another individual find a friendly and or workable relationship with a power greater than themselves. Because that's what I needed. And to find some peace and to let them know they're okay. I went through terror as a child. I went through a horrible loneliness, isolation, rage, low self-esteem, secrets, insecurity, terrible insecurities. And those didn't stop when I hit my 20th birthday. Natal birthday. My next AA birthday will also be my 20th, but and I won't say God willing, because God is willing. I'm the one that has to be willing. That's the determining factor. But to be able to do that, they talk about in our big book, they say we will get a sense of contented usefulness. That's what I want. Page 120, 121, 122 and the 12 and 12 is all about money and material things. Money, power, and prestige. And how that won't get the job done. All I wanted was some peace, some security, comfort in my own skin, being able to look the world in the eye, be alone and be okay, not to feel better than or less than, but equal to and a part of. That's all I really wanted. If whatever gets me there is what gets me there, it doesn't matter how much other stuff I have. I want that. And that came from a power greater than myself as a result of having done those steps. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. You know, and I like being honest. I like being honest when I'm home alone. I like being honest in my thoughts. I discipline them. I don't just think of whatever I want. I have to. Because I can wander down dark corridors anytime. I don't need a lot of help. But I like to do that because that gives me integrity, and I can look the world in the eye with integrity. If I'm full of shame and I'm just bothered and it's hard to look the world in the eye. That's when I have to be alone. I felt like a troll under the bridge, living in the dark, cut off from everyone, or certainly anyone that was wholesome. So, congratulations to the CHIP people. Welcome to the newcomers. I'm surprised at all these people that were visiting here that drank in areas other than Los Angeles. I thought it was us in Boston. That was it. So, but this is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity if you stick it out. Get someone to show you this thing. It's so much easier, so far less intimidating. Just got to follow directions. There's nothing to be figured out. And you'll find that as time goes by, you'll have that sense of inner peace and calm. That's all we ever were really looking for in the bottom of a glass. But this won't kill us. Thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.